It was the second Thursday of November when Marla checked into the Crestwood Hotel, a faded three-story building just off the I-87, surrounded by skeletal trees and a parking lot slick with rain. The wind hissed through the cracks in her rental car window as she turned off the engine, the digital clock on the dashboard blinking 5:42 p.m. It was already pitch dark. November in upstate New York didn't believe in slow sunsets. She hadn't planned on staying the night, but her connecting flight was grounded thanks to a thunderstorm strangling the Northeast. The airline gave her a coupon for a hotel that was already booked solid, and Crestwood was the only one with availability, and just barely. She wasn't looking for luxury, just four walls, a bed, and enough quiet to rest before her 6 a.m. flight. Inside, the lobby smelled like wood polish and something older, like forgotten furniture. A faux fireplace glowed behind the front desk. A short, gray-haired man in a beige cardigan looked up as she approached. "Reservation?" he asked. "No, walk-in, one night," Marla replied, shifting her bag off her shoulder. He nodded slowly, not asking for ID. "Room 712, he said, and slid her an old-fashioned brass key with a worn plastic tag. She was already turning toward the elevator when he added, almost like an afterthought, "Don't mind the noises, everyone hears them." Marla turned back. "Excuse me?" The man's lips twitched, somewhere between a smile and a frown. "The hotel's old, pipes rattle, walls creak. Some say they hear voices, just echoes." She gave a tight smile. "Sure, thanks." The elevator wheezed like it hadn't been maintained since the Clinton administration. It groaned to a stop on the 7th floor, the doors opening to a dim hallway that stretched into gloom. Fluorescent bulbs flickered overhead like broken lightning bugs. Room 712 sat at the end of the hall, beside a narrow window clouded with condensation. The room inside was small, square, and slightly tilted, as if the building had sunk an inch to one side. The wallpaper was yellowing, the bed sagged in the middle like it had given up. But what stood out was the mirror. It dominated the wall opposite the bed, oval-shaped, gilt frame. Its surface was too clean, too reflective. She could see herself in sharp detail, every line, every tired blink. She tilted her head. Her reflection didn't. It was just a flicker, probably a trick of the light, or exhaustion. She tossed her suitcase on the chair, kicked off her boots, and settled in for the night. At 11:47 p.m., she woke to the sound of tapping. Tap, tap, tap. It was subtle, soft, like fingernails on drywall. She sat up slowly. The noise was coming from the far left corner, near the mirror. "Hello?" she called, her voice groggy. No response. Then, through the hum of the heater, came a whisper. "Marla." She stiffened, eyes wide. "Who's there?" she whispered back, as if a louder voice might shatter whatever barrier held her in place. Nothing. She turned on the lamp. The room was empty, still. But her skin was covered in goosebumps. In the morning, she dragged herself to the lobby, pale and exhausted. "That room is weird," she muttered to the clerk. "I kept hearing noises." "You mean the echoes," he replied, barely looking up from his crossword. "Echoes?" He met her eyes. "They usually start the first night." "What do you mean?" "Voices of people who never left." He smiled. Was he joking? His face was unreadable. "I want to check out," she said, "but I need to come back later for my bag. Is that okay?" He nodded, scribbled something in his ledger. "Sure, we'll keep it safe." She left and spent the morning at a nearby diner, nursing 3 cups of burnt coffee. But her head wasn't on her flight or the weather. It was back in that room, that mirror, that voice. There was a heaviness in her chest she couldn't shake, like something had touched her and was still clinging on. By 3 p.m., she was back at the Crestwood. The lobby was empty. Her suitcase was still in 712. She debated asking the clerk to bring it down, but something pulled her toward the stairs instead. Maybe it was stubbornness, maybe curiosity, maybe the voice. She climbed to the 7th floor. But when she reached it, something was off. The lights were dimmer, the air colder. The hallway was the same, and yet not. The room numbers glitched in her vision. 705, 707, 709, and then 712. The door was open. She stepped inside. The bed was gone. The chair, too. Only the mirror remained, gleaming, waiting. Her breath caught. In the mirror, she didn't see herself. She saw someone who looked like her, but wasn't moving, just staring. And then her own voice whispered behind her ear, "Marla, stay." She spun around. Empty room. Panic surged through her. She ran for the hallway. But the door she exited didn't lead to the hall she entered. It had changed. Now the hallway stretched endlessly in both directions. Every corner turned brought her back to room 712. She tried every door, locked. She pounded on the walls. She screamed. No answer. Just the echo of her own voice, distorted and cruel. "Help me! Help me!" The lights overhead flickered faster. Shadows moved behind the frosted glass of door windows, faces frozen in open-mouthed horror. Time was breaking, reality folding. Her body screamed for rest, but she kept moving, tripping, crawling, crying. Eventually, she collapsed outside 712, sobbing. That's when she saw it. A figure, her exact copy, holding her suitcase. "You'll stay now," it said. Marla screamed, but her voice fell flat. The figure smiled, then stepped backward into the shadows, vanishing without a sound. And just like that, it ended. The hallway returned. The bed was back, her suitcase in the corner. The mirror now had a hairline crack running down the center. She grabbed her bag and bolted. This time she took the stairs. Every step felt like the floor might vanish beneath her feet. Back in the lobby, the clerk looked up as if nothing was wrong. "You got your bag?" he said. She nodded, shaken. "Still hearing echoes?" "No," she said quietly. "I saw them." He nodded, not surprised. As she walked toward the exit, he said, "Most people don't come back." She didn't. But the next night, another guest checked in. The clerk slid across a brass key with a worn plastic tag. "Room 712, he said. "Don't mind the noises. Everyone hears them." On November 10th, the city morgue was cold enough to bite through gloves, and the wind outside howled like something was trying to get in. Ava Ramirez adjusted her lab coat, rubbing her fingers together before pulling the sheet off her first case of the morning. The body beneath it was a middle-aged man. Heart attack, according to the preliminary report, but that wasn't what caught her attention. He was smiling. Not a peaceful, relaxed expression. No, his mouth was stretched wide in a rigid grin, teeth bared, lips tight, like someone had pulled the corners of his mouth and left him like that. Ava made a note and got to work. She'd been a forensic pathology intern for 5 months. Most of the job was routine. Blood, bones, tragedy turned into paperwork. But this past week had been different. There had been 6 bodies brought in since Monday, all unrelated deaths, all different ages, races, backgrounds, no patterns. except one. They were all smiling. At first, she chalked it up to coincidence, rigor mortis maybe. But this looked intentional, almost celebratory, as if whatever had killed them had also made them happy. After her report, Ava approached Dr. Meredith, her supervisor, a quiet, razor-sharp woman who never missed a detail. "Hey, weird question," Ava said. "Have you ever seen, like, multiple corpses smiling?" Meredith looked up from her tablet. "You mean like a death rictus?" "No, like actual smiling. 6 this week, wide mouths, perfect rows of teeth, no facial trauma." Meredith frowned, but didn't look surprised. "They teach us not to read into bodies," she said. "Muscles do strange things. Learn to ignore them." Ava nodded, but the response didn't sit right. It was too clean, too rehearsed. That night, she couldn't sleep. The wind outside sounded like breath, slow, measured. She tried to distract herself, watching a horror movie on her laptop, but the corpses kept flashing behind her eyes. They weren't just smiling. They were waiting. On November 11th, another body, a woman in her early 20s, no ID, found in an alley behind a grocery store. Homeless, maybe? No signs of violence. When Ava pulled the sheet back, she nearly gasped. The woman was smiling, but wider. Mouth fully stretched, jaw locked. It looked surgical. She leaned closer. That's when she noticed something impossible. Her teeth weren't human. Not all of them. Under the top lip, buried just above the gum line, were tiny baby teeth. Too many, too small, like someone had layered them beneath the surface. Her stomach turned. She backed away and hit the tray behind her with a crash. Meredith came in moments later. Look, Ava stammered, pointing. "Tell me that's not—" Meredith interrupted, voice flat. "It's just tissue folding, overactive nerves. You're tired." "But the teeth—" "Go home early, Ava." She didn't. Instead, she stayed late, pulled the old autopsy reports from cold storage, searching for anything similar. Deaths with smiling in the notes, unusual muscle tension, facial locking. There were dozens, all in November, all in the second week. Some reports were incomplete, others blacked out entirely. One name kept appearing, Dr. Meredith, as the signing pathologist. November 12th. She arrived at 5 a.m. before staff. The cold was worse than usual. Her breath fogged even inside. She went straight to cold storage. Drawers 14 through 17, all empty. She opened 18, nothing. 19, nothing. Only drawer 9 was occupied. She slid it open slowly. Inside was a man in a hospital gown, elderly, pale, smiling. A note was pinned to his gown. "You are almost ready." She stumbled back, heart pounding, hand over her mouth. She spun around, then froze. Meredith was standing in the doorway. "You shouldn't be here," she said, eyes tired. "What does this mean?" Ava asked, pointing at the note. Meredith looked at the drawer, then at Ava. "I told you not to read into things." That evening, Ava didn't go home. She watched from the security room, cycling through the morgue's feeds. At 2:47 a.m., she saw movement. Drawer 9 opened on its own. The body inside sat up, then looked straight into the camera and smiled. On November 13th, she didn't sleep, couldn't. The morgue felt different,
like it was watching her. She passed an intern in the hallway, someone new. He looked at her strangely and said, "You've got that look." "What look?" she asked. "The ones who've seen them smile." Before she could reply, he turned and walked away. Later, she found an old binder at the bottom of a file cabinet labeled Protocol 17. Inside were photos. Dozens. Every single corpse over the past decade, all smiling. All dated between November 10th to 14th. On the last page was a photo of Meredith, alive, smiling. Underneath was a post-mortem tag, tag 0913. Ava dropped the binder and ran. She ran down halls she'd walked 1,000 times, only now they felt different, longer, warmer, breathing. She reached the cold room. Meredith was there, clipboard in hand. Ava screamed, "What is this? What are you?" Meredith smiled. They always ask that just before it happens. Ava backed away. Meredith stepped forward. "You've seen too much now. That's how it works." Suddenly, the lights flickered. The drawers behind them began to slide open, one by one. The corpses sat up, every one of them smiling. And Ava realized something. They weren't corpses. They never had been. She ran. She sprinted for the elevator, mashing the buttons. It opened, but inside wasn't an elevator. It was a mirrored room. In the reflection, she saw herself, and she was smiling. On November 14th, the staff found Ava asleep in the break room. At least, that's what they thought. She was cold, pale, unresponsive. A post-mortem tag was around her neck, 1278. She was smiling. That morning, a new intern started. His first task was identifying unclaimed bodies. He pulled open drawer 127. Inside was a young woman, Hispanic, mid-20s, smiling. He frowned. Behind him, Meredith appeared. "Don't worry," she said. "You'll get used to it." They all smile.
It started on a Friday night, just before a late November storm rolled in. You know the kind. Black sky at 6 p.m., sharp wind that whistles through every crack, and clouds so heavy you can feel them pressing down on the roof. My parents had left that afternoon for a weekend retreat 2 hours away. It wasn't a big deal. Me, my sister Leah, and our younger brother Josh had stayed home alone before. I was 17, Leah was 15, and Josh was 10. We ordered pizza, pulled out a pile of blankets, and were halfway through a horror movie marathon by 9 p.m. Outside, the wind howled like it was pulling at the walls. The windows rattled in their frames. It wasn't snowing yet, but you could smell the cold in the air, and the trees outside bent like they were whispering secrets to each other. At 9:30, the power flickered. Josh immediately grabbed the remote like he could save the movie. "No, no, no! Don't do this to me!" Leah laughed. "Relax, it's just the wind." But then it flickered again, once, twice, and everything went black. Total silence. "Okay," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Let's find flashlights." We split up, moving through the dark with our phone lights. It took 10 minutes to dig up a few old LED lanterns from the garage and place candles around the kitchen. We all gathered there again, and I dug out the emergency box, just in case. I didn't want to admit it, but something about the dark felt off, like the walls were listening. About 20 minutes later, while we were sitting on the kitchen floor playing cards, we heard it. Ring. It echoed through the house like a sound from another century. Josh looked up, confused. Was that a phone? Yeah, Leah said slowly, but we don't have a landline. The three of us sat frozen. We'd moved into the house earlier that year, and our parents had specifically gotten rid of the old landline. All our communication went through phones or Wi-Fi. There was no reason for any phone in the house to ring. And yet, ring. This time, it sounded closer, like it was coming from the hallway. Leah and I looked at each other. Josh whispered, "Is someone calling us?" We followed the sound, slowly. In the hallway, halfway up the stairs, the old phone jack was still in the wall, and sitting beneath it, plugged in, was a dusty, off-white rotary phone, the kind you'd see in a 90s thriller. None of us had ever noticed it before, but it was ringing. Ring. Leah whispered, "Did Mom or Dad plug that in as a joke?" I stepped closer. The phone stopped ringing the moment I touched it. No voicemail, no display, just silence. Then, before we could speak, it rang again. Once. Short, sharp, almost like a warning. I picked it up. Silence. Then, a voice. Raspy, low, but familiar. "She's in your closet." Click. The line went dead. I must have stood there for 10 seconds, the receiver still against my ear. Then Leah snapped. "What did they say?" I swallowed. "Nothing. Probably a prank." Josh stared at me. "Your face says otherwise." I lied. It was just static. But my brain was buzzing. Because that voice, it had my voice. Distorted, older maybe, but definitely me. Leah leaned closer. "Why would there be a landline call in the middle of a blackout?" "I don't know," I admitted. "Maybe it's hardwired in somehow?" "Hardwired from where?" Josh tugged on my sleeve. "Whose closet?" I hadn't thought of that. Then I remembered something. Earlier that week, Josh had told me about a bad dream. He said there was someone living in his closet, a girl with no face, who stood in the corner and smiled when he wasn't looking. We'd brushed it off. Kids have wild imaginations. But now, Josh was already crying. "I don't want to go upstairs." Leah grabbed a flashlight. "Then we'll check it together." We made our way to Josh's room in a slow, single-file line. The hallway was dead quiet. No creaks, no wind, no rain. Josh's room was colder than the rest of the house. The air felt still, like it had been holding its breath for hours. I opened the closet door with shaking hands. It was empty. Just clothes, shoes, boxes. I let out a breath. Then Leah pointed. "Why is your jacket moving?" It was hanging on the far wall, but the sleeve was swaying gently, like someone had brushed past it. Then it stopped. We turned and left the room fast. I told Josh to sleep in my room for the night. An hour passed. No more ringing, no more weird noises. But around midnight, I heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate, one step at a time, from upstairs. Then the phone rang again. Ring. Only once. I didn't answer it this time. Instead, I pulled Leah into the living room, where Josh was asleep on the couch. We locked the front and back doors, pulled the curtain shut, and turned every flashlight and lantern on. We stayed there until dawn. The next morning, there was snow outside. The whole house looked peaceful again. I tried to check the hallway. The jack was still there, but the phone? Gone. That evening, my parents came home early. We told them everything about the ringing, the voice, the closet. They laughed it off, said the storm probably made us anxious. My dad checked the breaker and confirmed the power was just knocked out temporarily. But when I showed him the photo I took of the phone, he went quiet. He took the phone from my hands and studied it closely. "I tossed this phone out before we moved in," he whispered. "It was broken. I threw it in a dumpster." "Then how did it ring?" I asked. He didn't answer. That night, we tried to sleep. I was almost out when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I didn't pick up. It buzzed again, then a voicemail. I played it, and in my own voice, it whispered, "Don't look behind you." For a second, I couldn't even breathe. The message was so soft, so close, it felt like it wasn't coming from my phone at all, but from right over my shoulder. I stayed frozen, staring at the dark screen, waiting for something else, anything else, but the voicemail ended there. Just that one sentence. Leah came into my room, half asleep, asking if everything was okay. I couldn't, because something was wrong, terribly wrong. My phone started buzzing again, same unknown number, same vibration pattern, but this time it wasn't the ringtone that scared me. It was the reflection. In the black mirror of my phone screen, right behind me, I saw a figure. Not a shadow, not a trick of the light. A girl, small, pale, head tilted, standing exactly where the closet door was. I spun around. Nothing. Just the door, cracked open an inch wider than before. And for the first time, I noticed faint footprints leading towards it. Prints that weren't ours. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. None of us did. And if that number ever calls again, I'm not answering.